My name's Gordon Robb. Probably better known by most people as fat old climber. Just someone that discovered climbing or specifically bouldering, and has kind of enjoyed it since I've discovered it. I started climbing about 8 years ago, but it was rope climbing. I'm terrified of heights, so I was never comfortable. And someone told me about TCA in Canning Park, the newsroom. So I just popped in to see what it looked like. I wasn't climbing, and I just went gobsmacked. So I went there with my daughter to try it out and loved it. Only climbed very sporadically for probably 2 or 3 years until I discovered Meetup. And since I joined the Meetup, I had the group of people I climb with. Got myself a pass for a year. Minimum has been once a week, minimum. Just love it. Meetup. There was this Scottish hill walking and activities group, and I thought that looks interesting. I could do a bit of walking, and then I noticed there was a climbing meetup that they had. It sounds stupid to say it, but it just instantly felt like home. So it's really good, and it's still, we get guaranteed 1 or 2 new people a week. Some that never come back, some that never go away. The big thing about Meetup is people do it for different reasons. There's a lot of people that moved into the area that don't know any students that have moved into, but you get a lot of people who are maybe socially not confident, and they think, oh, I'll maybe try this. And a lot of people would rather come to a meetup that's got 10 people in it than 2 people. So I always try and get people to sign up if they're coming along. What does climbing mean for me? It's kind of a lot of different things. Far, far bigger than I thought it would be. It's kind of my social world. I could probably count on the fingers of one hand the people I hang about with who aren't from the group of people I climb with. And I don't have enough hands to count the number of people I know from climbing. So I socialise with people, do board games, go nights out with people that I know from climbing. Often my only form of exercise, but it's a fantastic form of exercise. It's the best gym session you'll ever do. You're not only getting a full body workout, it doesn't feel like you're having a full body workout. So it's a big form of exercise. There's a lot of talk these days about mental health and all that, and I never ever think it helps my mental health. I know that I'm happier when it's on. Like when the pandemic was on, I wasn't falling in a pit of despair, but I really missed climbing from both the social aspect and from the activity. It's just good to feel. You come here, you work, you climb for a couple of hours, you feel physically drained, but fantastic. The one thing I do, and I'm known for it in kind of normally comic terms, is I cannot function without having a coffee. I've sometimes been late to go for climbing, so people are already on, and I've just quickly got changed and I just never have as good a session. So first thing is a caffeine intake, sometimes more than one. I've been known to come here on a Sunday, get here about 12, and still be in the cafe at 1:30. I'll still have a climb, but I just like that, sitting having a coffee, chatting, socialising. So that's a huge part of it for me. I think it stems from the meetup. Our meetup meets in the cafe, like half an hour before, and that's always been a part of the climbing. It's not like I'm going there to exercise. I'm going there to meet some people and then we'll exercise. Then I will, depending on how disciplined I am, I'll maybe do a wee bit of warm-up. I'm a great watcher of videos to try and research stuff, and almost every climber I've ever watched talking to beginners warm up in the lowest grades. So even when I was climbing higher grade than I am now, I would always warm up in purples. So I tend to, if I'm focused, if I'm like we're here to work, I'll do 5 purples, 5 yellows, fairly quick. as in one after the other, but really, really focusing on slow movements, technique, focusing on footwork. So that's, no matter what else I'm doing, I always have that warm up, which is part of a technique practice. And then it depends who I'm with. So sometimes it's a working session. I'm going to do as many climbs as I can for exercise. Sometimes it's there's new oranges. We're going to tackle the oranges. Sometimes it's there's a project I'm working on, and I'll spend ridiculous amount of time getting one move on a climb. It depends. And then there's normally a wind down, and that can be an hour and a half, or like on a Sunday it's like 4 hours, of which there's probably about 10 minutes activity.
Tell me about your adventures climbing outside.
Like about the year before the pandemic, the meetup group, I know that they were going to Glenlidnock, and I thought, I want to give it a bash. So I went there, and the first thing no one told me about Glenlidnock is how far a walk it is from the car. So I was pretty puffed out by the time I got there. And I think I wouldn't be exaggerating to say I hated every second of it. I was terrified all the time. Anyone that's ever been climbing, and I don't know why anyone would be watching this if they hadn't, in the bouldering centre, there's 30 centimetres of foam underneath every part of where you're climbing. You're never going to miss the mat. Whereas when you climb outside, there's this like tiny bit of, this, which is great if you're wee and light. But I in my head, I was thinking, firstly, it's target practice. Like, if I come off the wall, am I going to manage to hit it? But the other thing I found, because I'm heavy, is I could fall off from a foot onto a hard mat and it hurts, whereas it doesn't hurt. So I was terrified. Plus I was climbing with a lot of really good people, and I just felt, sometimes they would put the bouldering mat on what I described as jagged death rocks, and I was having trouble standing on the mat. So I thought, if I come off, there was this wee thing happened in 2020. I don't know if you've heard of it, pandemic. So because all the centres were closed, once we were allowed out, only had the option to climb outside, and I was so desperate to climb. We went to a couple of places that were, I reckon, really beginner friendly, like Wolf Crag in Stirling and Windy Hill in back of Paisley. And I hated it, but it was all I could do. So I slowly got into it. I got myself a mega mat. So I think it was like the biggest mat you can ever get. And it's like, I think it's 15 centimetres thick or something, and super big. And still scared, but I slowly got into it. And I would even say I was beginning to enjoy outdoors climbing. Very, very low grades, in fact. I would tend to climb things that weren't graded climbs. So they weren't even like a 2 or 3. They were just, I'm going to climb that, or I would do traversing. And then through that, a lot of the people I know through climbing go to a trip yearly to Fontainebleau, which people call font, which I hadn't made the connection between font and font grades. And I don't know if it's true, but people describe it to me as the home of bouldering. And I just thought, that sounds fantastic, even though it's climbing outdoors. So 2020, what became the year of climbing outdoors, getting ready to go to Font, I joined the group to go to Font in September of 2020, which obviously didn't happen. We got there this year, but I would say I prefer climbing indoors. And the reason I prefer climbing indoors is because it's just, is it less complicated, or it's more, one of the things I didn't say about what climbing is to me is I like the problem solving aspect of it. I like the fact I only have a specific set of holds to use. When you're climbing outdoors, if you can grab it, it's in, whereas that's not what it's like here. And I don't feel you have that same problem solving aspect outdoors that you do. And I just like the idea that it's enclosed. I don't know. I just prefer indoors.
Tell me about the climbing goals.
Before the pandemic, I climbed a pink, but it took me a while, and it was just, I find with grades, grades must be, route setter, grades must be like a constant source of, I'll say discussion, but I probably mean argument. But I think that they can't be specific, because what I can climb and what someone else who's half my size, half my weight, there'll be styles that suit me. So I think it was just a style that suited me, and it was unusually crimpy, which I don't normally like. It was on an upright, which I prefer an overhang. It was reachy, but I managed to get it after half a dozen attempts. And that kind of made me realise that maybe I could be climbing more than oranges. So then I kind of got on a fitness, because the lightest I've been climbing was 17 stone 4. I don't know what that is in new money, but it's from where I am now, it's 5.5 stone lighter, which I worked out recently is about 30 odd kilos lighter. And I found some videos of me climbing from then, and my technique was absolutely dreadful. I was lumbering up climbs, and I thought, how the hell did I even get up those things? And I was that much lighter. So it suddenly occurred to me that I spent a lot of time working on technique, trying to work on technique, focusing on technique, which I think anyone who's not your typical light, strong person should do. It suddenly occurred to me, right, I do quite a lot of working on strength. I do quite a lot of working in technique. The thing that's going to make the biggest difference is if I can lose weight. So I was speaking to one of the MEA group, and I was thinking, like, so I'm climbing 6s now. Would I think I could climb if I lost 6 stone? Would I think I could climb if, and I could pluck this number out there, but I don't think it's unreasonable. I thought I could climb a 7A if I was 30. Now, with the technique I've got and the strength I've got, if I was 30 kilos lighter, I could climb it. So that became my goal in the early months of 2020, which obviously got this. And by March, I had the goal of font. I'd lost 15 kilos. I was climbing minimum 4, sometimes 5 times a week. I was on track. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And a lot of people I know, the way of dealing with that was to have fitness goals. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do it. My way of dealing with it was to watch Netflix and eat everything. So I just went really downhill physically in that period. And I would have come back to climbing I think the centre opened on the 31st of August 2020. I don't know why that date's ingrained in the line. and I struggled, and I mean struggled, like physically struggled to climb 6 purples. And for me, it's never been about how much can I achieve. It's always been about, am I physically struggling but still enjoying it? And I didn't even enjoy it. I was saying to Mark, because he was with me, I was actually thinking I'm just going to cancel my membership because I didn't enjoy it. I persevered, and it took me a while to get the enjoyment back. It's taken me a year and a half to get even close to where I was. But of course, we had 2 or 3 months, and then it all closed down again. And the second lockdown was not only physically longer, it was in the winter, so it was even worse. So when we came back in April 2021, was it? It was an uphill struggle. So I still have that goal, of 7A. And I'm less focused on when it will happen, because I really need to, I just struggle with weight loss. But I don't struggle because I don't know what to do. I just don't do what I know I need to do. I'm quite focused on it just now, and climbing for me helps when I couldn't climb, I couldn't focus on it. Whereas now every time I climb something and I know I'm struggling to make a move because of how heavy I am, that's just a constant reminder. Don't stop for a pizza on the way home, kind of. Yeah, so I have, my goals for climbing are, there's just the normal one that a climber will have is one grade I want to get to. But I tend to work by chunking. So right now my goal is a 6A plus. Because although I've climbed higher than that in the past, since the pandemic, I haven't done a 6A plus. I know one person who during the pandemic came back and complained about having lost weight. And I think most people gained weight, lost fitness. And I think, although we've been back now more than a year, I still know people who think they should be where they were 3 years ago. And I think it's like you spent 4 or 5 years getting to where you were then. Why are you expecting to be there? You know, I think too many people are basing their performance now on where they think they should be based on where they were, forgetting that they spent the best part of 2 years not doing anything. So I know loads of people are still not doing what they were doing. Finger strength is not where it was. Tendons take ages to build up. Strength is quicker, but so there's a lot of people I speak to are just constantly moaning about how bad they are. But it's based on how good they were, if that makes sense. I tend not to be, don't get me wrong, I can be negative, but I tend to be quite focused on knowing what I should be able to do. And although I've got this 7A, right now I'm focused on 6A plus. Where did I come up with the handle Fat Old Climber? I was on Instagram and I started looking up climbers and I came across this guy in the States. I think his handle is Climb, Sleep, Repeat. Something like that. And I guess the best way to describe it is a heavier set gentleman. Bigger than me, I think, I would say. I don't know if heavier, but certainly bigger and younger. And I don't know why I thought I could do that. And that was went through my head. And we had a visitor on the meetup, like from abroad. She was German, I believe, who are, I think, universally known as being quite direct. And we were climbing away and we stopped for a break. And she said to me, "I wish my dad could meet you." And I thought, oh, that's quite nice. And I didn't get the next line out because she said, because he's old and fat too. I come from Glasgow, and if you come from Glasgow, you know the Glaswegian sense of humour is sarcastic and self-deprecating. So I thought, I am old and I am overweight, so I can own. So when I started going back to this Instagram thing, I thought it just makes sense to me to call myself Old Fat Climber because I'm old and fat. And the funniest thing about it was when I went into Instagram and I put in the user ID Old Fat Climber, it was taken. So I had to make it Fat Old Climber. And my objective was always to show my struggle with climbing, if you like, but partly showing that I'm not your typical climber, because I wasn't thinking that way, but I'm not your typical climber you see on Instagram. Because normally it's some 20-year-old who's weighs about the same as one of my legs, who's super fit. And I just felt there's unhealthy people or fatter people or older people I think are underrepresented. So I thought that was part of the driver. And then I'd always videoed myself, because from other things I've done, doesn't matter what sport, I always found that videoing yourself and watching it back is a great way to understand, because sometimes you think you're in a position in the world, but you're not. So I found it was because I was in the habit of videoing myself, so I just used to video myself and post, and it's kind of taken off from there, I think. Yeah. And the red, I like red. That's just a thing I have. I like the colour red. And there was a person in the meetup who always wears green. And someone mentioned it, and I think that's quite good. to always wear the same. So I thought, I'm just going to start wearing red top. And someone commented, I posted one of my videos, someone goes, you like that t-shirt? And I thought, do people think I'll always wear this one t-shirt? I said, yeah, I've got like 8 of them. Because I suddenly thought people are going to approach me because they'll probably think I stink because I'm always wearing that t-shirt. But yeah, it became this thing. I'm kind of recognizable for reasons other than being that old fat guy because I'm always wearing red. The community part of climbing, I didn't mention it, but as an activity, as a sport, as a hobby, I can't think of any other activity that is so socially welcoming. You have to really, really work hard to take up climbing and not meet people. You really have to keep yourself to yourself because the folk just talk to each other and will help. Sometimes the help isn't welcomed, but if you're struggling with with something, and most people will say, do you want any help? Or some people just throw help at you, which is, I know there's a big discussion about beta spraying at the moment, but I think it's almost impossible not to get to know people come climbing, which is, I don't think, and I don't know if that's Glasgow, but it's definitely climbing. And I don't think there's any other sport that you can just do and build up such a big circle of people you know without that being the point, if that makes sense, of joining a club. Or setbacks. Okay. When you get to a certain age, you realise that things like warm-ups and not throwing yourself into the hardest things straight away, you realise that there's a point to those things. And the reason you realise is because it becomes harder and harder to just go straight in at the highest level. So I've done quite a lot of things that are fairly physically intensive over the years. Like used to do taekwondo, used to run, and warm-ups, they're just a vital part, getting the bloodstream going, getting the blood into your muscles, getting your joints warmed up. And when you're young and fit, it's still required, it's just not required as much. So I'm always aware of and bizarrely, the thing I've had least problem with is my shoulders, which are they take a wee bit of a pound because I tend to do overhangs and things that are physically quite a lot of pressure on your shoulders. But I've got quite big shoulders. So the setbacks tend to be where you'll be climbing something and you'll just, I don't know, make a move and it's sometimes just a tweak. Now, folk of my age will know you can tweak yourself like brushing your teeth. But when you're climbing, and sometimes you don't know what you've done, but a wee twist of your back or like fingers are really, really prone to not so much injuries, but tendons aren't the same as muscles. If you work a muscle, it'll damage it and then recover stronger. Tendons take a long time. And this is a bizarre connection, but I knew this. I used to do show jumping. I knew this from horse riding with show jumping days, that at the beginning of a season, you always needed to take the horse out for hacks. And there was a point to it, and the point was the horse needs to build up its tendon strength slowly because they don't build quickly. So I've always been aware of fingers. The hangboards and the campus boards and seats, etc. I imagine they still have the warning that says shouldn't be used by, and I've always heard, like, if you haven't been climbing for 2 years, stay away from them. And the reason is you'll be able to do it, but the risk of injury is far, far greater. So I tend to be careful, which doesn't mean I don't injure myself. I tend to have the same mentality with injuries that I've always had in everything I've done, which is take the absolute minimum break that's required and then come back gently, come back carefully, and modify. Don't come back and climb what you were climbing. Just take it easy, take it slow. If you've got an injury, try the move. And as soon as you feel even the remotest possibility that it's not the right thing to do, don't do it. I know people that have got pulling injuries that they're recovering from, and I'll see them on an overhanging blue that is a dynamic move to a crimp. And I'll say, why are you doing that? And they'll say, it should be okay. I said, but you're not going to know it's not okay until it's not okay, because you can't put your finger on it and feel it. So I tend to be overcautious, which, as I say, touch wood, seems to work for me.
What advice would you give people?
There are medical conditions that might preclude you from climbing. And by medical conditions, I don't mean illnesses. I mean like chronic back pain, or I would struggle to think of any situation anyone's in where they couldn't climb. My advice I would give anyone is come along and try it, but try it with low expectations. You know, it's like there's a thing in climbing. Not everyone has it. And so I hate to criticise when I don't mean everyone, but there's a thing in climbing that a lot of people have, which is success is getting to the top. I mean, it's right there in the name, climbing. But we have a lot of people in meetup and they come and they're scared of heights and they're climbing a purple and they'll get halfway up and get nervous. My approach is always just come down. Whereas you'll hear some people, go for it, you can do it. And I think when you're new to something, if you push someone and they fall, it's probably going to set them back. So for me, it's try it, have low expectations. The one thing you'll find if you're heavy, unfit, the one you hear all the time is, I don't have any upper body strength. You don't have any upper body strength because you don't do anything with your upper body, but climbing is one of the best ways to develop. Plus, you shouldn't be using your upper body as much. You should be using your legs more. But it's incredible how quickly improvements can be made. We get people who come along and climb in the meetup, never done it before. Half an hour in, they're going, oh, my hands are so sore, and they get on a purple and they can't hold on to it. And I say to them, I guarantee if you come even once a week, 2 or 3 weeks, that will go. The immediate grip strength gains from climbing are phenomenally quick. And then if you're heavier, you'll get a far better workout climbing than going to the gym, and it'll be more fun. And the strength gains are a lot quicker when you're heavy as well. And everyone knows, although I seem to manage to combat it with pizza, everyone knows the more muscle you've got, the more calories you're burning. So building muscle is good for weight loss. It's as a fitness thing, I would say it's either unknown or underrated, because it's an excellent way to get fitness. Excellent. One of the things I love being in the meetup, because I love just people who are coming to try it, and then you can just see the moment they get the bug. And any of my friends I've got, anyone I talk to, I'll mention climbing, and if they go, I'll say, come along. And I love introducing people to it, because when I discovered climbing, I didn't know it was a thing. I mean, I heard of climbing. I didn't know this existed. And I don't think I would be over-exaggerating to say it changed my life, finding climbing. Because it's the best thing ever. No matter what type you do, no matter what grade you're at,